And with us tonight are Johnny Moped. Johnny, yeah. Where does the band come from? Hell.
Well, we come from Croydon. It's about 10 miles south of London.
What sort of gigs have you been doing in London, in and around London?
Well, we start. Yeah.
Roxy.
And the Roxy.
Yeah.
There's no one faking it less than Johnny Moped. He was tailor-made for punk rock.
He was a legend back then. The captain and everyone just loved him and talked about him a lot.
The worse you were, the better people liked you in 1976. Isn't that great?
It was tremendous fun. Having battled for so many years to just get one gig, suddenly 2, 3 gigs in a week.
It was a spectacle to behold. You never knew what was going to happen next. You know, the Mopeds and the Damned and the Pistols and that were going up on stage singing stuff that related to normal people. And yeah, that's why everything changed.
Croydon is essentially a very dull place. It's full of people shopping and lots of office blocks.
I never considered that there was anywhere else to be, really.
I didn't know any different. It was just Croydon. But as we got older, I think we sort of collectively realised that Croydon is a butt of a joke. And although we were very Croydon-centric, we would sort of half support it, but half also take the piss. And that was very much the ethos of how the band grew up in what I now know as this goddamn awful place to live. And if I ever go back there, please kill me.
The bands that we had in the early days, 3 of us were from the same class at Selhurst Grammar School.
I sat next to Phil, and in front of me was Fred, and in the next class was Xerxes.
John was just John until I looked in one of our history books and there was a story of King Xerxes of Persia.
He seemed to think that John possibly wasn't rock and roll enough.
I think because it's the name of someone who was quite powerful and important, and John thought he was important.
Xerxes was always very cynical, and he still is very cynical. Fred was always really cool.
At the age of 13, Fred was quite remarkable. He could grow sideburns quite successfully. He was probably the coolest guy in school.
Why did we all get together? I don't know. I think I was only asked in the band because I had a drum kit. My mum bought me a drum kit. I didn't want to play the bloody drums, but it was an opportunity to be in a band playing drums. Captain went to a different school. He went to Stanley Tech.
Ray, my brother, he became a close friend to all of us through music, really.
We used to watch Top of the Pops religiously, you know. We just saw the Sweet and Slade and, you know, the Glitter Band, and we just wanted to be up there doing that stuff.
I mean, it's the age-old story, and I'm sure it still goes on. That through friends and school and things like that, a group of people get together that want to make music. If we'd spent half the time we'd spent discussing what the band should be called that we had on actually playing it, that may have brought things further.
The band was the Black Witch Climax Blues Band, but when Johnny joined, we thought we'd better change the name, and Genetic Breakdown seemed a good name.
I am the singer of the group, Genetic Breakdown. The true singer. No, believe me, I'm not joking. This is true.
I met Johnny at a party in South Norwood. One of my school chums was having a party, and he lived about 4 or 5 doors down the road from him. And you know, like sort of the expression life and soul, and he certainly was. He was dancing and singing, and I just thought, well, this guy is just like a bundle of frenetic energy, you know, and he's a megastar waiting to happen.
I think Paul had this aspiration to be a biker, and he used to hang around with people who thought they were bikers. Maybe they were bikers, I don't know. And one of them persuaded him one day to go down the tattoo shop and get Hell's Angels Croydon tattooed on his arm, which he did.
He was a biker, you know, he was a wannabe Hell's Angel. He wanted to be Johnny Harley or, you know, Eddie Vincent or something like that, but he ended up with Johnny Moped.
He may have dreamed of being James Dean, but at the end of the day he was just Paul Halford, and a moped was as good as he was going to get.
I think he was quite pissed off. It was, guys, you know, do you think it's a good idea then, this Johnny Moped thing? Don't you think it sounds a bit weedy? No, Johnny, really, it's a happening name, you know, don't worry, everything's fine.
Johnny became the identifiable face of Johnny Moped, and Johnny Moped was Johnny Moped.
I said, baby, let's groove. 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 I said, baby, you gotta rock the joint. Yeah.
Ray's dad very kindly let us use the place to rehearse, and it would normally be Phil's bedroom, which was downstairs.
They weren't actually really rehearsals, they were an event. You didn't want to just keep playing the same old crap over and over again. You just make it up as you go along, and that's what we did. We just make things up as we go along, completely fearless.
He was very good at improvising. I mean, that was the whole ethos of the band, that we would improvise. And he would make words up, Xerxes would make words up, we would make the music up, and every week we would do something different.
Okay. Yeah. I met my baby in an old sidewalk. She was cutting through the town down an old side alley.
We just aspired to playing a gig. Just a gig in front of an audience would just suit us fine.
There was this natural amphitheatre called Beulah Heights, up near where the Crystal Palace TV area is. And they had a local festival there in this park.
What did we do? Most bands would sit down, they'd work out a set list, they'd have some kind of, you know, rehearsal. How did we start it? Well, we started it by, you know, just following on from the song that the DJ had been playing on there, and just, you know, off it went.
And, you know, where was the front man? Where was the singer? Mike was standing there, you know, on the grass in front of this bunch of local people waiting to be entertained. And they soon found out where he was, because they heard the sound of this moped careering down the hill, actually through the audience. And he was a bit out of control because it was such a hill that he was kind of careering through these people. They were throwing themselves out of the way, you know, kids getting out of the way of Johnny. The picnic, so he's riding through, you know, on his moped. And it kind of ground to a halt in front of the microphone. And everyone was just like looking aghast, you know, with disgust. Who is this complete pillock? And he said, "Hi, baby, my name's Johnny Moped. I just flown in from LA. Come on, let's take it away. 1, 2.
What? I don't remember that. I don't remember that at all. That is no. I didn't turn up at Beulah Heights because I was on holiday, but I forgot to inform the rest of the band.
Hey, I see it's a ghost on an all about a rapping machine. Would it be a man over 17? There's a go, 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 if we did. Go, 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 Lord, if we did. I said go, 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 if we did.
The funny thing is, when you start a band, you have to interact, I suppose, with all the other bands in your local area. And we were universally despised by everyone else who played a musical instrument in Croydon.
There was a group, I suppose theoretically they were our rivals in Croydon, called Dominus Contraband. I'm sorry, I should say Dominus Contraband.
If you couldn't play your instruments, you were never going to get anywhere, and they could play their instruments because they could play King Crimson's 21st Century Schizoid Man.
I remember the guitarist saying they can't play their instruments. And of course that became a great source of pride for us all. You know, we can't play our instruments.
Give me an M, give me an O, give me a P, give me an E, give me a T. What's that spell? What's that spell? What's that spell? Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you, Johnny Moped!
We couldn't get a gig anywhere, so we put our own gig on in the back garden, and we did put posters all around Croydon advertising it. 36A Broad Green Avenue, Saturday afternoon.
I mean, we were so lousy that, you know, where could you play but the back garden, really?
And there were a couple of kids walking past, and we paid them sixpence to come and stand at the back so it looked like there was an audience.
And they kept going, "Can we go now?"
And the police came round. "OK, the Beatles over there, turn it down."
I think Johnny piped out, "We're not the Beatles, we're loads better than that."
I think the neighbours were complaining that it was so boring rather than loud.
Brenda was standing by the back gate.
There was a woman on the horizon for Johnny, and the 20 years difference between them was no bar to getting together and being in love.
Johnny used to say that he had 82% disability, and that's why he worked at the rehabilitation centre.
At the same time, Brenda was also working in there.
Yeah, she was working in the kitchen. I was washing pots and pans, and at that time she was a little cracker. I couldn't keep my eyes off her, you know. I remember a Geordie woman who was a pastry cook. She said, "That young fella, his eyes are following you around the kitchen like anything, you know, when you walk round." She said, "Why don't you go up and say hello to him and stuff like that?" Such an opportunity arose when I was a bit behind with the washing up. She said, "Now come on, lad, let's get this washing up done." Brenda said, "Well, do you want to come out with me tonight? Meet you down the Windsor Castle in South Croydon." That really spurred me, you know. I thought, "Oh, yes, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh," wash out his pots and pans, you know. No, the boss lady in a kitchen at the Government Trade Centre couldn't make out how I've done all the washing up so bloody quick, you know.
Well, alright, so I'm going steady. Well, alright, then people, about the dreams and wishes you wish, and a night when lights are low. Well, alright, we will live.
It did fizzle out, you know. We was just thought it wasn't going anywhere, you know. Thought, we're just playing the same old shit all the time, blah, blah, blah.
Phil had gone to uni, and Xerxes had moved north to go to uni.
The other members of the group, possibly quite rightly, thought that I'd sort of abdicated from the band. And I suppose I had, but not. It wasn't not one of those things that you discuss. It wasn't as though you're in the band, you're not in the band. I mean, you're in it. I'm in it for life. This is a life thing.
Johnny had gone off with Brenda. Captain and myself and Fred, we experimented by joining different bands. I was invited to join a band with Slimy Toad in it.
Tour was a progressive musical ball, which, you know, well, in those days it was enjoyable to play, but things moved on.
Ray played in another band called Oasis, and he basically learned his craft in that band. Because they were doing all different cover versions musically, you had to get your shit together.
I found myself working at the Fairfield Halls, cleaning toilets. One of the other porters, he ended up being rat scabies, and I remember he disappeared one day. He said, I'm off to answer an advert in Melody Maker, which was known as the Bible. He came back the next day with all his hair cut off, and he joined this band, run by this mad kind of visionary, who ended up to be Brian James. So that was the Damned, really. He said, they're looking for a bass player, do you fancy it? I gave it a go, had my hair chopped off, and yeah, it was just a whirlwind.
I was on Denmark Street and I saw a sign on the wall that said, bass player seeks groupie. And I called and said, do you mean a group? And he went, well, I'll have either.
I played with Fred in a band called The Unusuals, and that was me, Fred and Chrissie Hynde.
I called them the Berk brothers. They just looked like a couple of Berks. And we rehearsed in Fred's mum's front room.
We rehearsed lots of songs. Some of them, I think, turned up on the first Pretenders album. I know Precious is on there.
And then they fired me, but they didn't tell me.
I was working at a woodwork factory. A colleague said, there's a couple of guys who want to see you. And there was Captain and Dave, and asked me, do I want to bring the band back together, you know?
Much as the local scene in Croydon hated the Johnny Moped band, we were actually just right for what was coming, which was punk rock.
Whilst Captain was in the Johnny Moped band, he was also having some success with his other band, The Damned, having released the first punk single, New Rose.
I got a feeling inside of me. It's kind of strange, like a stormy sea. I don't know why. I guess these things have gotta be. I got a new rose, I got a good dance, I knew that I always would. I can't stop to mess around, like a brand new rose in town. Whoa.
We opened up this club because we felt it was the right thing to do at the right time when things were bubbling up nicely on the whole scene.
When we took on the Roxy, unbeknown to us, it had actually changed its name because it had gone bust and lost its licenses a couple of weeks before, because it was originally called Shaky-Oramas, which was like a gay club, and it was just outside of Soho, north end of Covent Garden. No one else would have had us. If it was any decent club, it would have never allowed us even to hire it and put a band on. It was grotty in the sense that the seats were torn and stuck together with gaffer tape, chewing gum on the floor, and it was pretty, naff, yeah.
It was a basement place, and it had a really low little stage, low ceiling, mirrored walls. It was like an old, like an old gay club, really, but really tatty and shabby.
I mean, I can remember watching bands, and I watched one band, and Don would be in the DJ booth, and I'd be out right in front of the band, and I would just laugh throughout the whole show, and so would Don. We'd be crying, actually, and I'd see a band come off stage, and I'd say, do you guys, is that like your own tuning, or can you just not tune your guitars? And they said, no, we don't know how to tune the guitars. And I'd be like, oh. That was just magic, because everyone would get up and have a go, and that really didn't matter even if you didn't know how to tune the guitar.
The thing about the Roxy, what was important is it provided a really necessary ingredient of any movement. You got your soundtrack and you got your main players, but then you need a place for them to congregate, a sort of HQ where they can exchange ideas. And out of this exchange came other things,
Johnny Moped was introduced to us through The Damned, and just crazy, crazy young band. But he was one of all the crazy young bands. He did stand out because he was quite nutty.
Ray's commitment to The Damned was too much, so we had to find another guitarist. So we got Slimy Toad from that band Tour that I used to be in, and Chrissie Hynde, who'd renamed herself Sissy Barr. She wanted to be in the band.
I got a copy of Sniffing Glue, I think it was, and there was an advert in there that the Johnny Moped band were looking for a guitar player, and I called in. It was like, hey, it's you guys, and they went, yeah, you're the only person that's called for they fired me, and I reapplied for the job not knowing it was them.
So we had 2 guitarists, and then we eventually did do a gig at the Roxy Club.
I know, I remember I was wearing that pirate hat. That's when I sang Johnny, It's You. We redid a song called, instead of Baby, It's You, it was about Johnny Moped. You should see what they say about you. They say you can't even start up your moped. And he was kind of famous too because his girlfriend was 40, and we all thought that was like, really radical.
Toad's Les Paul kept going out of tune because it was so hot and humid in there. And I think, Chrissie Hynde held the first number together, groovy, ruby and stuff like that,
I mean, I was trying to get a band together with a lot of people, but that was the one that really, where they, we really worked out songs together and tried to write together, and it was really important for me. It wasn't a little thing to me, I mean, it didn't pan out. I don't know why.
After the gig, Slimy Toad said, well, 2 guitarists, me or her, make your choice.
Yeah, I think that rings a bell. I think he got in there and got rid of me. Well, he wanted in. I think it was one of those things. You didn't take it too personally or anything, it was just, what are you going to do?
Maybe it's the best thing that ever happened to her. Could you imagine what it would have been like, Chrissie Hynde, this mega talent standing behind Johnny Moped, while he's singing VD Boiler.
In a way, Johnny Moped Band launched Chris's career because she was excluded from the band because you didn't need 2 punk rock guitarists playing the same loud power chords.
I was shit, I couldn't play. They were more musical than me. That was the thing, so no hard feelings. I had a certain something, which I, took with me, but, they couldn't use it. I was the last one. Like everyone else I knew in London eventually got in a band. I would just get a bottle of wine and sit on the tube and go from, stay on it for 2 hours and cry, because everyone was in a band but me.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Johnny Moped Band came home to Croydon, and they played the Rent Deer. Because it was Croydon, Johnny's wife came along.
Brenda was there because she was going to see a concert. And of course, what you do at a concert is that you sit down.
She sat down on this bar stool in the middle of this crowd.
Once the audience started pogoing, it was chaos. We had to get her out of there.
Punks pogoed all over Brenda. She fell off a stool.
She wasn't thinking that they're going to start leaping all over the place. She went down. Some of the other guys went through the crowd to bloody well grab her, and bring her to the side of the stage before she got trampled on and stuff like, or stomped on, you know.
She should have joined in. Mind you, she was, you know, she's been eternally 60, I think.
So yeah, she would occasionally come to the gigs. Very rarely. I think, you know, she just wanted his time, and we wanted his time. Conflict of interest.
Brenda's mother exerted quite a lot of influence. She disapproved of Paul being a rock and roll star because it would detract from him looking after Brenda.
My mother-in-law wasn't into it. You know, she said, "Oh, you're going to bugger off with that load of reprobates again, are you?" I said, "Yeah, I've got a gig." Yeah. "No, what about Bren? Doesn't she count?" "Well, she can come along if you like, so I'll get her in on the guest list." "No," she said, "no, you bloody won't. And I'm not having her on stage singing either, making a fool of herself." You know, you get on with it, girl. You know, if Bren wants to come with me, she comes with me. If she don't, she don't. End of, you know. I mean, she's an adult. She can do what the hell she likes. You know. She's not a bloody kid anymore. You know. So what's the bloody problem? You know. There you go. But overprotective mother-in-law, who was rather feisty as well. You know, used to give me bloody grief at the best of times. But mustn't speak ill of the dead, I suppose.
Watch out for the piece.
My friends were picking up guitars and I wanted to pick up something too, so I picked up a Super 8 camera and reinvented myself as Don Letts the filmmaker. It was a lady that bought me the camera. She was the fashion editor of either Vogue or Nova magazine at the time. Caroline Baker was her name, and much respect to her.
And he just started, you know, learning how to use it at the club. To learn to use the camera, he was just focusing on what was around him, obviously, and just amazingly caught this footage at that time, and it's a really good accident.
I'd been listening to the tape for months. Most people had heard the tape or heard of the tape or heard of Johnny by then, you know what I mean? And it was like the Beatles, you know, there was a whole thing around that whole hype, you know what I mean, like, which is real, you know what I mean, like, and people wanted to know how Fred was and how Slimy Toad was and how Johnny was.
The great thing about seeing the Mopeds was the attitude of it all. You know, the fact that Johnny had been apparently dressed by his mum, and the complete, absolute lack of any care about being cool. You know, which is very, very attractive. Like a bunch of kids having a laugh, which is what all rock and roll should sound like.
Okay, everybody, are you feeling all right, or are you half pissed or half knackered or what? Jesus, it's fucking hot, isn't it? You're gonna pogo for this number. Basically, it's called Our Loving Man.
Yeah, in my diary, Easter '77, I've got a flyer from the Roxy Club, and the Buzzcocks, Johnny Moped and X-Ray Specs played, all for £1.50, which was expensive in those days. And I remember going down to see Johnny Moped, and we'd jump up and sing backing vocals on Hard Loving Man. But that was unusual for me, because normally I'd stay in the shadows. I wasn't really such a poser as a lot of the characters around in those days. Such a shame. He always, if there was a camera, he'd like leap in front of it.
I think I first saw them at the Roxy. They were amazing gigs. All the gigs were amazing. But there was nothing. The band was the most exciting band since, you know, like the Pistols, the Damned, the Clash. You know what I mean?
I think Andy Shazowski was recording it for Live at the Roxy.
Johnny Moped there on side 2, track 1, Hard Loving Man. When you hired the Manor Mobile, it was like the top tool of its day, and it was full of engineers, you know, with these big desks. They're all mixing and reels were spinning, and all they did was to run a whole pile of cables out the back of the truck into the club and down onto the stage, and that was it. It was a live album, and no, it's far from perfect. What it does do, it does capture the essence of what punk was about, and certainly the Roxy. And it was a huge success. I mean, it sold something like 40,000 albums, which, like, it's crazy, really.
At that time, Roger Armstrong was a talent scout for Chiswick Records. He was at the Roxy Club, and he was looking for some sign-ups.
Captain Sensible first mentioned to me about maybe recording them. I think maybe he tried to take him to Stiff or mentioned to Stiff, but there was no interest.
I was kind of helping things along. You know, I was just there. I wanted to see this album made. I knew it was going to be brilliant, and if there's anything I could possibly do to make it happen, I would do it. You know.
I'd seen them live, thought they were fantastic. Part of the Croydon tradition of musically competent punks.
He didn't want to sign up any rubbish bands, but he was rather interested in us, so he made us a deal, you know.
Yeah, I think I was ambivalent with the deal with Chiswick at the time. I was pleased that it was a deal. There it was on the table, but Chiswick Records I don't think were going to make us into superstars. I mean, the Damned had major companies chasing them, and so did the Clash, and so did the Pistols, but we had Chiswick Records.
Dave and Toad weren't too happy about signing to an indie label, but they come round to it in the end.
And that was the launch of Johnny Moped on vinyl. He was out there, all of a sudden it was real, he was there. Can't take it away, he's a living legend now.
The first single was called No One, and then we recorded a B-side called Incendiary Device, and the B-side actually sounded better than the A-side at the end of the day, but because the lyrics contained stick it in a lug hole, stick it in her other parts, it remained as the B-side, but has remained one of our more popular tunes.
It was our first Moped vinyl release, and it wasn't going to be our last, so I was happy that we were on the tracks, you know, we were involved.
You won't tell me no lies. Tell me what you're doing. Remember where your time goes. I don't want to lose this. I'm no one.
And that then developed into the LP.
Yeah, recording Psychedelic was a great pleasure. I was really, really into it.
Well, working with Mopeds was, to say the least, an experience. Let's say Johnny was less than enthusiastic at times about coming to studio sessions. Of course, you had to book a studio session sometime up front.
Dave Berk, Toad, Fred and all that were absolutely serious when we turned professional. But I was having other problems.
We went in and did the music ourselves, spent about a week doing that. But of course it came to the point where we needed Johnny on the record.
A lot of the album tracks were interrupted because we needed Johnny to do overdubs, and he just wasn't available.
And despite Roger Armstrong phoning me up and trying to persuade him to come along and do the vocals. There was nothing for it. We had to go to where he worked, and we had to spin a story to the receptionist that there had been an accident with his mum. His mum had been run over, so he needed to come out and have a word with us, which he did. And we said, don't worry, your mum hasn't been run over, but just let's go for a cup of coffee in the car.
But whilst he was explaining why he couldn't make it, you would be coercing him into the back of the car.
So as soon as he got in the car, we just locked the doors and we were off to Chiswick. And I believe we also took his trousers away as an emergency measure, just to make sure he wasn't going to run away from the studio.
But if you wanted to make sure he was there, you had to get to Johnny before his wife did.
It wasn't so much Bryn that was a problem, it was a mother-in-law. I seemed to let the mother-in-law twist me around her bloody finger just to keep the peace. You know, I've got to forego this or forego that. I could have said to her, bollocks to you, I'm going out and finish this album, I'm going to do that gig. You know, but she was a very domineering woman, you know.
Once he got there, he stopped being reluctant. There was obviously some nervousness about doing it in the first place and coming up.
Yeah, Johnny sang the vocals okay, because he knew that if he hadn't sung them well, we'd be back the next day and yeah, stalking him. Fred was a little reluctant to be in the band, and particularly I don't think he enjoyed playing the bass guitar. He wanted to play the piano, he wanted to do something more sophisticated.
Fred actually had a fantastic melodic sense. As a musician, he was a great bass player, but you know, at his heart was really beautiful melodies.
He quite enjoyed classical music, and he enjoyed experimenting. He liked being creative.
And I have a tape of Fred playing solo piano music in the style of the French composer Eric Satie. It was almost like a demo we did in the studio one day, a bit of downtime, and he was playing piano, and I said, wow, that's nice, and put a roll of tape up, a couple of mics around the piano, and we recorded him for a while. I had an idea to do the Fred Berk solo piano record, but unfortunately we never got back to it and it never happened.
Because we were on stage each night, we were playing very similar songs, and it was the sheer intensity of it, I don't think suited him.
He didn't think that playing in the band the same songs was such a great thing. But he couldn't think of anything else to do, and he was increasingly becoming an alcoholic with the problems that came along with that.
With Johnny's reluctance to turn up to gigs and Fred's reluctance to engage in the spirit of the thing, we were always firing on two cylinders.
Yeah, they're great players, and you didn't have to work too much with them in terms of struggling to get performances. I mean, they really were extremely good band. Johnny just had a completely natural, instinctive approach to vocals. The one he struggled with was Darling, Let's Have Another Baby, and sort of not surprising in a way, because a completely quirky, eccentric piece that I think virtually any singer would have had difficulty dealing with.
I love you very much. Darling, if you ever leave me, I'll cry a million tears.
It was always a delight when we were making the record if the Captain turned up. Captain suddenly became this very responsible guy who was there to look after Johnny. And he was terrific with him, and he really put Johnny at his ease. He so obviously loved the band, and Johnny in particular.
I knew that there was a genius album in that guy, and Psychedelic proves me right, doesn't it, really? Because it's just the most sensational record.
We did do a promo video for the first single and the second single.
The Very Strange promotional video is produced by Barney Bubbles.
And he had some pretty weird ideas, but I thought were interesting.
Hi Tomcats, this is Johnny Moped speaking. Head case. Ah! I hope you listen to it.
We tied up a naked lady to the track of Incendiary Device.
Well, the idea was to walk around this girl and tie her up. That was it. I think we all just went, oh, all right then. And Fred was so embarrassed having to look at this naked woman that you can see on the video that he's just walking around like this as he's doing the ropes.
As an artist, he must have felt that that was a wrong way to portray it, but in the end it was, that was the outcome.
It wasn't a particularly good idea, but nobody thought of anything better.
Some of the lyrics, especially Incendiary Device, kind of nowadays are a bit hard to take, to say the least. Barney, I think, sort of managed somehow with the way he presented that to turn it into a kind of art, sort of a kind of outsider art kind of piece. Very primitive, as we can see now. The girl in them was Steve Naive's girlfriend. I would have to say they didn't make Top of the Pops, either of them. Thinking back on it, I don't know where we thought they might get shown.
I actually had a bit of a hand in the editing of the video myself because I was quite fascinated by how it was all put together. And then they held this launch party, and the only comment I can remember was that it was described as though it had been edited by a chimpanzee, and it was universally slated.
The videos to me really tie in with the whole idea that Johnny Moped were, say, this outsider art, because likewise Barney was like that very strange take in the world. Barney very much liked them.
The visual representation of the band was really down to Barney Bubbles. He designed everything. He designed the album cover, singles, advertising, and even the light bulb logo that we've got.
The light bulb, Barney was not a man necessarily given to explaining his work. It's interesting the way it's used on the album because it's superimposed on Johnny's face, so it's obviously something to do with that image that Chris Gabbard took of Johnny. And it was a great sort of collision, if you like, between, you know, this kind of art world person, Barney, and these guys that came from Croydon with this very eccentric and very strange sort of take on the world, in a way. It was a lovely match.
Chiswick put on a gig at the Roundhouse, and the idea of the gig at the Roundhouse was to put on 4 of their own bands and make a live album.
Because we had a bunch of acts on this Chiswick label. We were doing quite well by '78.
They had the Manor Mobile outside and recording all set up, but the one thing they'd forgotten was the critical factor, was getting Johnny Moped to the gig. Nobody had organised that aspect. So there were some frantic phone calls to Johnny at the last minute. We had Xerxes lined up to do the vocals instead.
We'd done the sound check. We were about to go on in about 15 minutes. I can't say I was particularly looking forward to it when this chap came up to me and he said, you won't believe it. He said, Moped's outside and he's queuing to get into his own gig.
And I went outside, it was poor Johnny, and I got to the door. They just wouldn't believe him that he was actually singing.
I turned up with a mate of mine just a few short minutes before the band was due to go on stage.
Oh, fuck it, let's do it. 1, 2, 3, 4!
But again, Moped sounded great on that live stuff. They just were, they were able to do that. They were able to play the stuff very, very well live.
Those are the recordings that are on the Johnny Moped, the live tracks on the Johnny Moped album, which very, very nearly didn't happen.
I first met Johnny at the Roundhouse gig because I'd been to the rehearsals with the band before and they did it without Johnny. I don't think he knew my existence or anything at that gig. He didn't know I was anything to do with him or anything. And I didn't know I had an existence with him either until at the end of the gig when somebody asked Berk something about it and he said, ask our road manager, and pointed at me. So I got elected by default.
There was a point where Johnny had split up with Brenda and he started going out with Kay. But because he split up with Brenda, he didn't have anywhere to live. So the pair of them were offered a place by Tony, our manager.
When they were at my flat, I didn't have anything to do with them. I just used to shut myself in my room and leave them to it because it was such a bizarre situation. I mean, the rest of the band didn't want him because I'm the manager, I've got to deal with it.
While I was with Johnny, I celebrated my 17th birthday, and he was a gentleman. He was such a gentle soul, and he said, right, we've got to get you something for your birthday. It's a shame I didn't keep the piece of jewellery, but I've kept this. To Kaiser, on your birthday, here is a little something to remember your first birthday with me, Johnny Moped. And it's in one of those nice corny envelopes that they used to do at the time with jewellery. Shape, Gift and Fashion Boutique. The Whitgift Centre at Croydon, Surrey. It was a really good time for the Moped band. So, there was always lots of things going on and happening at the time. Going to the gigs, helping him to get ready for the gigs, getting him to band practice, stuff like that. And it was lovely to be involved, and everybody was great. It was, really, really good fun. A very good chapter, especially for a 16-year-old girl.
When the publicity shots were done for the Psychedelic album, there was one of Johnny, and on his left arm was a Hell's Angels Croydon thing.
The front cover of the album, you can still see Hell's Angels Croydon on his arm.
Not a great idea, really, because as soon as they find out that sort of thing, and you're not a real Hell's Angel, they get a little bit pissed off.
We were playing Dingles, and this Hell's Angel turned up at the front door on his chopper. He just parked his chopper right on the front door, and the guy on the door went to stop him or something. He just pushed him out the way and walked straight through the crowd.
Leapt up onto the stage, come up there to the back room where we was all congregating, and said, right, that tattoo, that's coming off your arm. You're not a Hell's Angel, you've never been an Hell's Angel, and you're not entitled to have that tattoo. So I'm warning you now, if you don't get that tattoo covered over or taken off, I'm cutting your arm off and I'll be at the next gig to do it.
We just shut up. It was a case of, we had, we were super wimps.
His name was Goat, if I remember rightly. He did introduce himself before he proceeded with the threats that he made, and then he was gone.
That was it, and he walked outside, and Lemmy was in the bar, and he spoke to this guy, and he said, we'll get rid of it, you know. The guy's, he's not what you think. Don't go hard on him.
Shortly after that episode, obviously another gig was coming up, and I said, well, we'll have to get it sorted out. So there was a tattooist. I worked in Wandsworth at the time, near Garrett Lane in South London, and I said, right, come on, we'll have to get you in there. And all I had was a £5 on me, so we showed the tattooist, you know, this tattoo that he had to get covered over, and he just looked at it and thought, Christ, what the hell am I going to do with this? So I said, well, you've got to do something, you've got to cover it with something. Well, pick a design. I said, well, we've only got a £5. So he hummed and hawed a bit. He said, well, the best I can do is a parrot. He said, because we've got to think of the colours, and parrots, I could do you a greeny coloured parrot.
We chatted over it and produced this eagle with shooting stars. And when the Hells Angels turned up, they turned up in the dressing room, he said, oh, looked at the tattoo, said, oh, that's better. You know, okay. We'll let you off. We're happy with that. You know, save over my arm carved up like a Sunday joint, you know.
Tony and the rest of the band were relieved, you know, that somebody was going to actually take this in hand, because, you know, no one else could afford to do it or sort it out. So, yes, it was my responsibility to get it covered over with the parakeet.
I think looking back on it, it just being that by the nature of the mopeds being what they were, there wasn't a sort of long-term career in it for them by what they did. There was nowhere for them to develop. I mean, the Pistols broke up, the Clash sort of developed into a sort of more mainstream rock band with sort of reggae overtones, etc. The Damned sort of, you know, gave full vent to their pop sensibility. Mopeds sort of had just a willful eccentricity, I think about them.
If it was just down to the press, the band made it. You know, they were the darlings of the press. Nobody had a bad word to say about them. We had a record company magnate behind them, Roger. It was well into it, but it just wasn't happening.
So given that we'd made an album with Chiswick and they didn't seem to be offering to fund a second album, we went and looked for another record deal.
I talked to the band and said, you know, I can't do the things that they want done, you know, I don't have that experience. Maybe we should just find them a proper business manager.
I don't know what Tony was doing or what he was meant to be doing, but I don't think he was doing as much promotion as they probably wanted. And all of a sudden, these two blokes appeared.
Roger and James came along and they seemed to have very clear ideas about record deals and visually how we should be represented, touring, etc. So they became our managers.
They were getting him some good gigs, I admit that, but they wanted to kind of change him and market him a bit. Well, you don't do that to Johnny Moped. Johnny Moped's Johnny Moped. What you see is what you get. You don't start trying to create this kind of image when he's already got his own image. It's his own personality. So all of a sudden, this pair of leather trousers arrived. You make sure that he wears these trousers. I said, well, you can't make him wear a pair of leather trousers that are flared. Punks don't wear flared trousers. What do you mean? And they didn't like it. But I said, well, you know, he's not comfortable in them. So they went and got these all tarted up and done. I still didn't think they looked particularly right on him. But anyway, he went ahead and wore those. They got him this very prestigious gig at the Music Machine, which was a really good venue to play at the time. All of a sudden, word had got about, Sid Vicious and Nancy Spungen are here. Oh my God.
She's so fine looking, man. She's something else.
Well, the word was that the reason that Sid Vicious had come to see Johnny Moped was because he'd heard that he was doing a version of something else. Of course, there was a lot of excitement around because people were saying, oh my God, it's them, it's them, it's them. And this lovely little girl's come along and she started to take a couple of pictures, and next thing you knew, Nancy Spungen went into fire mode. And this poor girl was on the ground with her cat.